thank you everyone for coming this evening. We're going to kind of mix it up a little bit today, and we're going to be a bit more panel focused. So we've got 5 experts who are working in various degrees in the AI space, and we're going to be having an open discussion, if you like, on various subjects and various topics around this subject. And we want you guys to engage, so we're not going to keep questions to the end. If there's something you want to ask, if something you hear kind of prompts a particular kind of question, stick your hand up, and Lauren here will run over and shove the mic under your face, and we'll try and kind of let you ask your question. For our experts, if they want to kind of come and take a seat, we'll sit down, and I'll do introductions in a moment. But while they're kind of doing that, I think I'll just kind of kick off a little bit to kind of prompt some thoughts on why we're here and what we're talking about. And when we think about AI, we maybe think about this kind of dystopian future where robots come in and take over, be they kind of the more evilly led ones or the ones a little bit cuter. Or maybe we think about kind of artificial intelligence and systems and processes that would run our lives. Maybe we think about relationships. Maybe we think about kind of life-affirming or life-changing decisions, you know, that would previously have been made by humans and now being kind of algorithm-led. And maybe we're worried about our jobs all going. Everything's going to be automated. We're all going to be out of work. We're all going to be on the street. Hopefully what we're going to do today is dispel some of those and have a kind of really open and healthy discussion about this whole space. I'll kick off with the first question, and Seyi, I'll lead with you, and I'll invite you to really kind of respond to the following prompt. When AI systems cause harm, who's morally responsible for that? And then to extend on that a little bit, actually, who takes responsibility, or who should be taking responsibility for these decisions?
My name is Seyi Akiwowo. I used to be a local councillor in Newham, and through my experience of being, I guess, a very young black politician, I was exposed to a lot of online abuse on social media. That's when a speech I made at the European Parliament went viral, and hence I set up an organisation called Glitch, which is about ending online abuse and harassment. We deliver digital citizenship education in schools. We lobby social media companies just to be better, and we request from the government to have better legal and policy frameworks to deal with new crimes that come up with the whole online space. AI, from my understanding, isn't something that can be separated from a society, physical society. So it's only reproducing what we're telling it. And you've seen that with the examples of machine learning, trying to get it to speak, and it started being very racist and misogynistic. It's based on us. So we all morally are responsible with what we teach it. And we should see it like what we teach our children and, you know, the next generation, our nieces and nephews, the younger ones. We should see it like that we're all morally responsible. Who should do something about it? Definitely the tech companies. And definitely I think there's a role for policymakers and government to regulate it. But I want to throw the question back to you about what you define as harm. Because at the moment, I think harm is being decided or being defined by your white male privileged groups of people. And so what they see as harm, or what they see as banter, is not banter for people who are not that don't fit that mold. So actually, I think we need to be a bit more specific by what we mean by harm, and actually provide an intersectional lens. So from my personal experience, the reason why I'm here, the reason why I got into tech, because believe me, when I finished graduating at uni, I did not think I would be getting into tech at all. But what brought me here was because I received harm online. I received a horrendous storm of abuse on social media because a video went viral, and I thought Idris Elba was going to propose to me, but instead I was faced with racist death threats and misogynistic and misogynoir as well. So that's misogyny and racial slurs. And actually, when I responded to Twitter, and I said to Twitter and to YouTube, what are you going to do about it? There was no response whatsoever, because they didn't see it as harm. They didn't see it as a problem. They didn't see it as an infringement on my freedom of expression. They didn't see it as an infringement of how the platform was meant to be used. And so they pissed off the wrong person, because now I've set up an organisation to tell them that actually it's wrong. And what you do find as well when you talk to tech companies and those that are creating artificial intelligence to try and respond to some of online abuse. So I worked with a very, very well-known tech company, rhymes with Google. And they asked me to come in and potentially do some work, but they asked me to come in and they wanted me to teach, they wanted me to think about how I could help teach their new program around online abuse and about toxicity. And then they were like, oh yeah, we just want you to start picking up some words, like it could be like the BITCH word, and it could be like the CUNT word. And I was like, what about the N word? And what about, you know, things to do with my race? And they did not understand the intersect of me being a black young woman and the abuse that I was going to receive. So they were doing their best in their minds. They were trying to get the grassroots out. They were trying to get the activists out there and bring them along into creating this machine. But yet they were still missing it because their definition or their perspective of harm was so white, middle class, elitist bubble. And actually, if we don't get our heads around that, we are going to keep reproducing harm. We're going to keep separating society and having inequality. And actually, I think there's a beauty of teaching AI or using tech to address human rights issues, to address access, to address learning. And I think there's an opportunity there. But unless you get diversity in the room, unless you get more women into STEM, unless you get more people of colour into STEM, the same harm and the same issues are going to be reproduced.
Does that start at a point of education? Should we be encouraging people who don't conform to that normal kind of white male stereotype that moves into tech? Should we be encouraging everyone else to move into that space?
Don't force people into tech if they're not interested, but what you can do is equip us as the lay people with understanding of how our data and how our information is being used and how we can challenge it, how we can raise a grievance. When we talk about diversity in tech, there's a bit that's missing, and it's about inclusion. No one wants to be othered when they go to work. Like, no one wants to be that one woman in the room having to be the representative of all womankind in that room. A black person doesn't want to come to the office and have to explain what she's eating for lunch or like why her hair's different on a Monday afternoon. She doesn't want to have to go through that. So there's a real issue around, yes, you've got diversity because there's economic benefits to it, because yes, it's the right thing to do. But if you don't have inclusion, actually what you're going to see is a real drop in retention. There's going to be a drop in people wanting to stay in tech or wanting to stay in your company if the company itself isn't inclusive, if you're not genuinely wanting to take people's ideas on board.
I think some of those microcosms on the internet that we all exist in, Twitter, Facebook, we make some good points about diversity and those elements of it. But we've got to look at, as a society, about how we behave online. I mean, that's what it comes down to. We can all pretend to be different things, we can all behave badly in certain environments. Twitter's a great example where it can be an awesome place to share information and data and interact with people, but it can also just be a horrendous cesspit of bile. And sometimes very ordinary people who seem to be on the face of it nice people. So I think the responsibility about how we exist on the internet and how we behave on the internet, how we police the internet is a society problem across the planet. My point is, it's a society thing as we develop going forward, and I think AI is a really important part of how do we build that into what we do without it kind of taking over how we exist on the internet.
I've got a question kind of to lead things through, and when you come to answer it, if you just kind of give a little brief introduction of yourself, who you are, and kind of how you're working in this space.
I'm Charlotte Stix, and I'm a research associate at the Leavenworth Centre for the Future of Intelligence, which combines a lot of the buzzwords that are going to come up today. At the University of Cambridge, I research AI policy, and I'm also their AI policy officer. Why I do that is because I used to work for the European Commission in the robotics and AI team, where I helped co-write the European AI strategy and their national coherent policies. So AI policy is my background. AI ethics is something that feeds into policy, which is why I'm here, I guess.
What's the best way to design AI to ensure that we maintain human values, that doesn't get lost in the mix? And what are the core principles and tenets that we need to be following?
So to take that away, I'm not going to give an actual answer to this, because I think that's quite frankly very hard, if not almost impossible. And I will explain why it's almost impossible. I have a couple of approaches to how we can think about bringing ethics into, aligning it with human values. So I think the first thing to consider is, what are our common shared human values? The second thing is, how do we align them with AI? And the third thing, which I'm not going to look at that much, but which I think is really important, is are there also sectors where we should just not use AI at all? Because maybe we either can't align it properly with our values, or even if we could, there's still just something that doesn't feel quite right, and we can't put it into words why it doesn't feel quite right. Now, bear in mind, we need to be able to put it into words in order to tell the system what our values are, right? So that becomes a bit problematic. So, in terms of human values, why I say it's a tough question to ask, is that human values are transient to start with. So my values are very different to my grandmother's values, are very different to values held 200 years ago. So values don't stay the same, they adapt with society. What we accept as normal and obvious, that women should vote, for example, that, you know, everyone has the same human rights. This sounds so obvious right now. I know I'm stating the obvious, but it actually isn't, because what we're saying right now is let's discuss the values we have and let's write those down, and those are the values to go by, which might work for the next 10 years if we're lucky, but it will not work forever. So how do you make adaptable systems to adaptable, changing societal values? That's the first issue. The second issue is when we talk about this, kind of tend to talk about Western societal values,
I'm glad you
and
said that.
how we feel that. You're welcome. No, I think it's important because values are global, and AI is a global technology. It's not going to stop at borders just because values change. So in a very simple, this has nothing to do with values, which I'll get back to in a moment, but autonomous vehicles, very simple. If countries don't have the same regulations in terms of autonomous vehicles, how on earth are you going to pass the border from one country to the other in your autonomous vehicle? Is it going to adapt automatically? Are you suddenly in breach of law? Like, again, sounds simple, but these are real issues where we kind of all collectively, as a globe, as a continent, need to agree on. So talking about different values across the globe, values, again, they're not like a given thing. They're shaped by history, they're shaped by culture, they're shaped by traditions, they're shaped by religion. In the East, there is a very different approach towards inanimate objects as opposed to in the West. So care robotics, robotics for the elderly, that is not that big of a deal as it is here. The problems in terms of dignity are not really invoked because it isn't seen as the other in as much as it is for a Western country where we have predominant values shaped by Catholic or similar religions, where it's the human and everything else doesn't really have a soul or a spirit. That doesn't apply to the whole globe at all. Having said that, what can we do possibly in terms of like what should technologists do? That's a good question. I think something promising is to reframe the discussion around values, around the discussion like the Toronto Declaration for AI recently had, which Amnesty International framed around human rights. Because we all more or less, hopefully, agree on, fundamental human rights. So that would be the first kind of stepping stone we could look at and say, okay, well, how do we reframe the discussion around this to ensure that at least we start from a base that everyone more or less agreed on? This is really important because right now we're dealing with, albeit at times shitty systems, but they're not yet at the level that they will be at in 10, 20 years. So if we don't start addressing this now with at least framing it around the fundamental human rights, then we might face issues once these systems are capable of doing more and more things. Another good thing is having ethics courses for people at university who are doing machine learning and who are becoming the next cohort of technical experts. Again, not because it might solve everything, but simply because it frames the way you think about issues. And like you said before, it possibly opens up areas that you just haven't considered are an issue previously. So I think all of these endeavors are really valuable. But yeah, the time is ripe to come to some real useful next steps. But then again, that needs to be caveated with these next steps might also change and adapt to society in the next couple of years.
So kind of quite clearly, the engineering level advantage or advances and the technology is going to advance a lot quicker than the discussions and the values and the ethical kind of things that we need to bake into the system. That's going to happen a lot quicker, right?
One of them is very hard to figure out what are common values and like what ethics has been an area of research for so long compared to artificial intelligence. So yes, these are massive issues, and they're historic issues, they're human issues. So yes, it's going to be much harder to solve them than to throw more compute at a system and have it play the next level of Dota or some such. Yeah, definitely. And that is a problem, that it's just not aligned, and that oftentimes society and people who are concerned with ethics or policy almost need to play catch-up.
I believe that, as you said, we've been struggling as humanity for many, many, many years to align our values. And it is hard. It is hard because there are far too many variables that will, at the end of the day, will output those values. We have politics, religion, we have generation after generation, we have influence of, people who actually created and made something meaningful. And at the end of the day, we are yet here in London trying to figure out how we could start and frame something that very soon, if we are succeeding, is going to be far more smarter than us. So to align our values, I would say we first of all need a revolution at a social level aside from technology. If we are going to use technology to communicate it, that's fine. But if we are not able to put aside the differences, differences resulted from religion, from political views, from anything else, we are going to fail in creating such framework.
I've been very careful to say what we align the AI's values with right now, might feasibly turn into problems 10, 20 years down the line. Now, assuming what you're talking about is artificial general intelligence, yes. Possible artificial superintelligence. Now, you also said that God might know better than we do in terms of who to run over, who to save, sacrifice, whatever word you might use. Now, if you're familiar with this concept, then you're also familiar that if our values aren't properly aligned, we might all be paper-clipped. So this is a super short caveat just to explain the idea that an AI that is being given the very simple task to create paper clips eventually figures out that actually it makes more sense to create, take all the molecules in the known universe to create a paperclip machine. Not malevolent at all, not evil meaning, just very efficient. So I'd like to challenge that in a bit to say, it might be a god, but we need to be very careful about saying that it might solve everything for us, which is what you then said, we need a social revolution, which in a way I agree with, but yes, we are here in London right now discussing this. The problem is that we are here in London right now discussing this. The problem, again, this is a global technology. Every stakeholder in every place across the globe needs to be involved, and that is a massive undertaking. I agree with you, this is necessary, but how to do it is an entirely different question, how to do it to ensure that everyone has a voice.
So I work in cybersecurity, and that opens up a whole moral argument, which is an easy answer for me around how we protect the data that we gather and the products that we build, and we absolutely have to do that as best we can. If I think longer term about how we're building products that have advanced AI, and how much data companies are storing and generating for people, it's hugely valuable from an attack point of view or a compromise point of view. So we're moving into a realm where it's not just about building a product that has this capability that changes our lifestyles and changes the way that we exist. We've got an obligation to protect it and to move things on as quickly in that field as we have anywhere else. I think some of the conversations are really interesting here because we've kind of gone down rabbit holes of really quite deep conversation around ethical nuance and things about society. Do we really want to build machines that... Human beings are complex, we're complex animals, aren't we? And that to me is a good thing. The whole diversity thing is a great thing. We are individuals and we make mistakes and we're fallible. And can we build systems that have those things built into them? Possibly. Do we want to as a society? That's a separate question. I can see the advantage of AI making our lives easier, making technology faster, improving the speed at which we do things and the way that we learn and communicate in society. But do we want to recreate human beings as a thing?
I'm pretty awesome.
And these things are actually being built by human beings who, by their nature, have all these separate nuances.
If we can have proper conversations on a human level with an artificial being, what are the implications? What do you think that means for us?
Hi, I'm Reema. I am working for the Nuffield Foundation, which is a philanthropic foundation that is setting up an institute called the Ada Lovelace Institute by the end of this year. It is focusing on the social and ethical implications of data, algorithm and AI. In response to your question, if we could have conversations with AI, what would that look like, and are there any social and ethical implications? And I really just want to go back to the Turing test, actually, because that's a really classic example. Alan Turing once predicted at one point that machines would have and exhibit the same level of competence as humans would, and that it would be behaviourally indistinguishable to distinguish the behaviour of a machine from humans. So I think there's a really interesting question here, which is that it's not just the ability to have a conversation that is being exhibited by AI. If it is able to have a conversation and continue that conversation for a long, long period of time, that AI is exhibiting a level of competence beyond the ability to have a conversation. It is able to understand what is being said. It is able to tap into cultural norms and learn from cultural norms. It is able to follow the weird vagaries of our language and our conversation. Imagine you having a dinner time conversation and carrying that on with an AI machine. Do I think that that's going to happen anytime soon? And I have to say that I'm a little bit of a skeptic, because I think that level of competence is actually moving towards artificial general intelligence rather than narrower forms of intelligence, which it looks more feasible here and now. However, the social and ethical implications of that are profound. It's clear that there are levels of competence that have been exhibited by AI that have been demonstrated. So, for example, the beating of AlphaGo human players or chess players, but as of yet, there's not been the ability to carry on a conversation without breaking it. That's been exhibited, and there's actually a competition. There's actually an international competition that gets robots to try to carry on a conversation with human judges, for as long as they possibly can, without being identified as robots or AI. And as of yet, that's not happening. But this question asks us to kind of cast a mirror upon ourselves, and that's the point that was made in this book. That what this shows us isn't so much about the competence of AI, but actually why we value ourselves. What's the difference between ourselves and AI? And is it our ability to have loads of computational, ability to think rationally as human agents, or is it actually our capacity to be creative, to relate emotionally, to have those conversations where we can have a dialogue that is completely random and follows a crisscross, and at the end of the day we've had a great dinner time conversation. And the argument is that the more we recognise that rationality is just one part of ourselves, the more we realise the distinction between ourselves and the AI. And that's quite compelling as an argument, that maybe we're concerned about the competence of AI because actually we've got what we value about ourselves all wrong. What we should value about ourselves is our ability to be, caring, relatable humans, our creativity, our empathy, our capacity for altruism, our capacity to come to a collective agreement in society. And actually, yes, we're highly intelligent, but that's not what makes us unique.
So I'm curious, in an ideal situation, obviously, it would be great to have a global set of rules that everybody agrees on, that spans across all cultures, all genders, all ethnicities, everything. But obviously, given humankind's inability to do that in the past on virtually any topic, will not happen anytime soon. In terms of making leeway into technology that is going to happen with or without us, essentially. Like, it's going to happen whether we agree or not. In terms of next steps, do you think that regulation is the best way to go in terms of the onus has to be on the company to make the right choices, and that needs to be done with informed consent from the people using it. But in order to get people to do that in the first place and to enforce it, there has to be reward for good behaviour, but also punishment for particularly terrible behaviour. A good example is being GDPR, where regulation is formed within a specific region of the world, and it applies not necessarily to a company being based there, but if they choose to operate in that area, they have to conform to those values effectively. And if so, do you think that that is a viable way to kind of start the discussion where it spreads from there?
That's a very good question. That's what I do. And that GDPR is what I've been doing for the past 6 months. And this is why I still have got a headache. You're all there. So my name is Ivana Bartoletti. I'm the head of privacy and data protection for a consultancy firm called Gemserv. I started as a privacy activist years ago. So the way I started all this was I was in the US at the time. I was about 17, so many, many years ago. I was about 17. I was in the toilet and there was a CCTV camera. I got so furious. I was like, why? What was this doing here? And then from there I started to say, well, you know, let's talk about privacy. At the time, I'm 39 now, at the time nobody cared about it, and now it's become the most sexiest topic in the world, privacy, which is really good. I've been waiting for 20 years to get to this point, so fabulous. Now, I want to say that I love tech. I'm not a techie, I love tech, I love AI, I really do. I love algorithms. AI, automation, we're talking about machines. And they are machines, and that's what they should be, and how we should talk about them, machines. That's why, do you know the computer, is it Sophia, what's her name? Yeah? That's why when I see that, it annoys me. You know why? Because when you talk to her, she mimics the way of doing irony and jokes of human beings. How do you dare? You are a machine. So can we please put the machines in the right place? You know, we're talking about machines, not human beings. And I think for all this excitement that we have about AI, we have to recognize that we are the humans, they are the machines. Yeah. First point. Second point, because things are technically possible, doesn't mean that we have to do them.
Yes.
I mean, I really dislike the point, oh yes, I mean, when you talk about AI, you either have the enthusiastic, it's fabulous, it's great, we can solve everything, it's fantastic, nothing is going to happen, millions of jobs are going to be created out of AI, it's fabulous, they're going to do everything for us, or you have the defeatist, all jobs are going to be destroyed. It's going to be terrible. Machines are going to take over. I'd rather have a machine than Donald Trump, to be fair, but, you know, but seriously. But the key thing is, it's, you know, the reality is somewhere in the middle. But not everything that is possible is going to be doable, right? So the thing is, who is going to decide what's doable and what's not? Who is going to make that decision? Who is going to define this framework? And, you know, this is a massive discussion that we have to have. And we have to have everywhere places like this. Companies have to play their part. Now, companies, individuals, we have to take responsibilities, parents, schools, education, everybody. But, you know, we've been talking about, as Charlotte, you were completely right, we've been talking about these things for millenniums. What's right, what's wrong, who knows? You know, women, for example, I'm a feminist, 100%, you know, but, you know, women, we know, you know, I would tell you what's wrong, but, you know, women know very well, for example, in the area of women's rights, that, you know, it's always slippery. Sometimes it's considered, you know, our rights are always under threat. So what's right and what's wrong changes all the time, as Charlotte was saying. So what is the key thing here is we need to have that discussion about what's doable. Now, AI is becoming buzzword at the moment, AI ethics buzzword. There's a competition between different companies, which is I'm more ethical than you. So Google has published the principles, very basic to be fair. Instead of saying AI can make society better, it's very defensive. we will tackle bias. Well, it's not about tackling bias, it's about making it better and fighting it and actually using tech to make our life better. It's becoming a fight and a struggle and a competition between countries. Who is more ethical than the other one? Companies, IBM, I'm more ethical than this, and Microsoft, I'm more ethical than Google. But they're saying all this because they don't want regulation. That's the thing. You know, they really don't want regulation. That's why they're trying to play the game. Fine, fair enough. But the key thing to me is it's true. AI is going. Algorithms are eventually making more and more decisions about us. They will. In the criminal justice system, whether you're going to receive benefits or not, whether you're going to be employed or not, they are going to make those decisions. So that is where I think we need regulation.
Yeah.
Because I would like every single company, particularly public agencies, that make that decision to demonstrate clearly how they're going to prevent bias, how they're going to promote fairness. I would like these algorithms to be made available so that researchers can look into them and check whether these companies have tried all they can to promote fairness via them. And that's why I do like Macron's ideas in France to publish all this, to make this information available. Now, I'm not a techie, so I don't know how possible that is, and I need I need you to come on board and tell me and tell us how we do this. This is how we do this. Well, yes, you techies, tell us how to do this. Can we avoid the black box? Can we avoid it? Can we make it available? Now, the fact that we're trapped wherever we go online, the fact that they can create our history, what we like, what we don't like, and the use of this that can be done for political purposes. I mean, we've seen Cambridge Analytica. It's what's at stake is democracy, and we need to understand this. And the way we respond to this is about the future and how we protect our democratic values. On the issue of data, I just wanted to say one thing. Techies again. We can find all the way to protect personal data, but there is one thing that needs to change in our society, which is please, let's together stop and take a strong stand on this debate around monetizing data. I'm seeing too many people talking about, and it scares me, talking about, oh, I give you my data, what do I get in return? Now, the digital dividends have not been distributed equally so far. We've given all the data to Facebook, Google, they know everything about what we do, yeah? They've gained. What have we gained? What have we gained out of it? What have we got out of this? Now people say, can we monetize data so that people can get, you can get services in return? Are we going to get to a point where the NHS will give us a service if we give out data? I mean, is that where we're going as a society? Could be. Let's start valuing data in a different way than we've done so far. And let's start talking about personal data, not just as something that we own, like you have your mobile phone or you have your car, and because you own it, you can sell it. But let's start talking about personal data as something that we are. You are your personal data. It's you. You are the things that you like on Facebook because it's your personality. And we need to change the perception about personal data completely, especially in a society where, as you were saying, we're not online and offline. We're somewhere in the middle all the time. And if we start valuing our personal data as we value us and our dignity, and we start demanding for our personal data to be treated like us, if you go to the NHS and you have an operation on your heart, you want it to be treated well. And the same is about your data. I think it's about moving forward. So if we agree, for example, we want an equal society, and that's what we should agree on, then we don't want algorithms to discriminate. And this is sadly what happens. We are seeing discrimination by algorithms on a daily basis. This is the result of for example, not having the right training data, not having the right data sets ingested by the machine. So we need to make sure that we do all we can to ensure that algorithms do not produce discriminatory results.
So one of the really important issues in this space is that data has, and AI and technology more broadly has enormous potential to really transform people's lives, and we recognise that, and actually there's an enormous positive potential around it. But there are many conditions in the market that mean that whilst data and AI and access to these technologies are being used, they are almost kind of concentrated in the hand of a smaller group of companies. And that's problematic when you think about the size of those data sets, and you think about the AI and the algorithm, and how the development of that often, at least in these early stages, relied on the size of those data sets. Those aren't data sets that, NGOs have when they're thinking about how they can tackle homelessness. They're not data sets that, people have when they're thinking about how to identify bias that exists in the criminal justice system. They're not data sets that people have when they're thinking about what the best way is to tackle complex problems like reducing poverty and inequality in a particular area. So I think there's a really important question there, which isn't just about the harm potentially that data is causing, but actually there's an important question about the inequality of access to data. Absolutely. And the inequality of access to AI, which actually relies hugely on the access to data. So for me, the kind of one takeaway point here is how can we all collectively work together to try to ensure that the system or our economy and our society don't implicitly favour this kind of inequality of access to data, which increasingly looks like it is becoming the new question for our society. It isn't just income inequality, it isn't just wealth inequality, it's also data inequality and tech inequality. That's a problem.
I think all of these are great reasons why we shouldn't kind of get into selling our data, being sucked into this. But also another angle is some people don't have data to sell. Some people don't even have access to the internet. It's like the data that different people will be able to sell, should this be monetized, will just be a reflection of a divide that is already happening in society. So even if that would happen, that is like another angle that is just clearly bad, basically.
I'm a programmer, of course I don't speak for all programmers, but I think you're giving us a lot more credit than we deserve, because we're actually human. And when I read news about AI, a lot of the ethical concerns for me about human error. So clearly I'm American. There was recently a death by a self-driving car in Arizona. I think it was an Uber stolen. And it was simply human error. I think a lot of the immediate concerns about AI are not so much that we program bias into our algorithms, but more that we're humans writing algorithms. And so a lot of the initial ethical debate from our perspective isn't that we're not thinking about these things, but there was a programmer last year who took down 40% of the internet by typing the wrong command into AWS. When I look at a lot of the deaths from AI, it's self-driving car experiments, and it's simply algorithms that have failed. So I think from a programming perspective, when I think about ethical concerns, I think more about what do we do when we have simple human error.
Yeah.